Hope everyone's having a good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Creative Collective, where we think outside the box. We are excited to bring you an amazing team, rockstar team. Jen Cortez and Jay Holder. They work together in they did the top tier TC training. Sorry. And they had started a company and are partners and have done tons of transactions. They're going to help us help show us why it's important to have a top tier trained TC and some of the advantages to hiring them and their company to do so. Yeah. So welcome to the show, Jen and Jay. Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Jay, take it
Lady
away.
All right. Yeah, so me and Jen, we started our company back in March or April of last year. Funny, we both TC'd. I was on the transactional side, she was in the sub two side. And we happened to just meet. I think I just reached out to her and said, "Hey, what are you doing on the sub two side?" And started working together and then decided, hey, it might be better to partner up. And so we've done that, and we've grown up to, at one point we had 16 or 17 TCs, and now we're sitting at comfortably at 12. We're hiring a few more, doing interviews this week actually. So yeah, it's how we got started and love doing TC work.
Nice. Well, and you guys can go separate, but what did you do before sub two and Gator and before the TC world? What was your W-2, or what is your W-2? Are you full-time?
Yeah, so actually Jay and I are our background is pretty similar.
Okay.
So I was in healthcare for many years. My background was management. I worked my way up, I was front desk, surgical scheduler, medical assistant, all the way up to office manager. So I ran a general surgery practice with like 30 people. And I knew that, I was really good at training people. I was really good with meeting deadlines and things like that. And then, when my husband decided to join sub two, I was trying to figure out like where I would fall in, because I'm not a negotiator. I'm not a negotiator, and it gets me really nervous to talk directly to people. So I did the Avatar series, and that's where I realized that there was such thing called transaction coordinator, and I never heard it before. Right now, this is all I do. I am full-time TC. I quit my job March of last year, and I just was doing this full time. So, meeting Jay, it was so funny because when we met, it was like perfect. Our backgrounds are very, very similar, but I'll let Jay tell us a little bit more because he's more of my techie person. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, so I same as Jeffrey, I come from a medical background. I'm a chief information security officer. I was at a hospital for 13 years and left. Now I work in a hospital adjacent company. So I still have a W-2. I still have a full-time job. So I'm not a full-time TC, so to speak. So but yeah, that's why TC is very important to me. Is I'm very risk adverse because I spend all day looking at risk. Numbers don't excite me because I sign $1 million contracts weekly at work. So when people are like, "Oh, I'm good," I like at this deal where I'll make $5,000. I'm like, "Whoa, $5,000 is not a lot of money. Let's work through that to make sure you don't lose $5,000." Because I think losing $5,000 is more important than making $5,000. So it's really good to be able to sit back and look at people's deals from a perspective of risk, because I don't think enough investors look at risk
Well,
overall.
especially when they join. Okay, here's the thing. Like you see, it's all across the board when you join sub two in the Gator community and you start doing deals and you've been in it for a while. You see new people come in and they just are so eager to get that first deal that they jump into a bad deal and lose money. You see it happen, unfortunately, more often than not. They don't vet, they don't underwrite, they don't, they just believe and trust, because, and it's hard because Pace has built a community. And I feel like when you get in, you kind of have to get this false sense that everybody's Pace, I mean, like Pace is teaching it and everybody's, doing what Pace does, and we kind of blindly trust people without doing our due diligence. So yeah, I definitely we're super thankful for guys like you, people like you, you and Jen in here. You know, you guys are amazing. I met Jen and Irving early on. I think I was one of Irving's first phone calls when he joined Sub 2, and we had a great conversation. You know, we kind of vibed, and then I see him and Jen just on this rocket ship, you know, and just launched and never looked back. And I love seeing that. You know, I love seeing people come into our community and just grab it and run with it, you know. So kudos to you guys for doing everything you've done so far.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about you know, the top tier TC training maybe a little bit. You know, what led you to, you know, did you start off TCing or did you take the training first to be a top tier TC? Because I know it hasn't been that big of a thing, the whole top tier. They've really been pushing it this last, I feel like 6 months or so. Did you get training first or did you just start doing some TC stuff?
So I was TCing prior to top tier. And I'm thankful for top tier. It's like the most amazing program out there because it's very structured. You know, there's a lot of resources, a lot of help, a lot of guidance. Prior to top tier, there really wasn't like a training, I would say. There was a platform where you can like, you know, get on and get some hands-on experience. But nothing like this where like there was like legit videos of walking you through step by step and like all of these Zooms, and it's a totally different ball game. I decided to join personally. Number one, obviously the certification was a big plus because you know it kind of makes you stand out from other TCs in the community or even outside of the community. But honestly, I think it was the best decision I've ever made because there's always things that are changing, and we're able to keep up with all of those changes with top tier.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So let's talk about you know, top tier TC. What do you say sets you apart from just somebody who's done a bunch of transactions and who can kind of go from A to Z, walk through a transaction? My wife can do that, right? We've done a lot of our own deals. We've been investing creatively, and she's done our own TC stuff for us. What sets you apart? Why would I go to you, you know, on a deal versus having somebody who has just done a lot of deals? What are some of the advantages would you say to going with you guys?
I think one of the biggest things is people do deals, and I've worked with those investors that's done 100 deals, right? And what they do is they still do 100 deals the first way they ever did the deal. They don't keep they don't keep up with the changes and the way that things morph in our community, right? They're still, you know, hold on to that video from 2 years ago and they reference that link to go back and fill out the paperwork. And you find out that a lot of that stuff is not right anymore and it's changed. And that's one of the big things. The second biggest is we have the community of TCs, right? So if there's something that we need to know about a state, we can go in our TC chat and go, hey, what weirdness do I need to know about in Idaho? Because I'm doing a deal there and I've only ever done one, and there may be somebody who's a TC, a top tier TC in Idaho. Like you asked me about Arkansas, Texas, Tennessee, the area I live in, I can tell you all the rules. But you asked me what's the rule in Alaska, I probably don't know that rule. I can TC that deal and I can find out that any rules that are special. But I think that's one of the biggest things about top tier is they walk you through that. And then the amount of complexity we get to see from top tier deals. We're working directly with Molly. I mean, we have 5 or 6 Zooms a week that she's actually leading the Zoom. So, you know, that's good. And then you've got Allison and Ashley that lead the other Zooms. And so you've got the 3 top people on Pace's direct team leading us weekly and able to just hop and ask questions, and they're wide open. So it's interesting.
Nice. So you're constantly learning and growing learning new laws in certain states, learning the ins and outs to just basically provide the best service for your clients. It sounds like that's amazing. Awesome. So can you walk us through kind of what does a top tier, what does a TC do? What do you guys do? What's your day-to-day? Can you kind of walk us kind of through kind of maybe not a deal, but walk us through what a TC does.
Yeah, so we take care of the transaction from contract to close. So, we're facilitating the whole transaction. We're communicating with all the parties involved. We are directly in touch with the title company, the attorneys. We're making sure that they really understand the deal. A lot of times when we're dealing with title companies or the attorneys, they say, yeah, we know, we've done creative deals before. We know exactly what we're doing. And as we get further along, we start to realize, like, wait a minute, let's take a step back. Let's talk about this a little bit more. So like, we're guiding them. We're trying to get the deal to close in the correct way, right? So that they understand what it is that our client, our investor is trying to do. We're also getting ready for closing, right? So we're handling all the paperwork that they would need to have access to the mortgage, the insurance, and power of attorney. I tell people all the time when they tell me, I've closed deals before and I didn't have to use a TC. Okay. Well, here's the thing. A title company or the attorney, they're concerned about closing the deal now, right? But they're not going to set you up for success after the deal closes. And I explain this all the time to people. Those sub-2 documents are extremely important to these creative transactions. If you don't have them, you're going to have a really hard time, right? And for some of you that may not know, those sub-2 documents are going to make your life much easier when you're talking to the mortgage company or the insurance. So without that, you can still, get the deal done, but it's going to be tough after a while. So having a transaction coordinator and making sure that that is done and making sure that those get signed the day of closing are extremely important. I can't even explain how, or, even tell you how many times people have come to us and they're like, hey, we closed this deal. I didn't have a transaction coordinator. Can you audit it? And I look at the sub-2 documents. I'm like, this is not even like filled out, or it's not correct.
Whoa.
So it's like now they have to get redone. And now you actually have to go back to the seller and hope that they'll actually be willing to sign it again.
Wow.
And that's tough.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, to add to that is what I tell folks is we take the emotion out of the deal. So investors are very emotional. I'm an investor. I'm emotional when I do my deals. So we take that emotion out. We're that neutral third party. That our entire job is to look at that risk. And I know a lot of our colleagues say like we're the glue, right? Because that's what we've always been told. And I agree, we are that. But I equate us more to like the airbag. Like we're going to be there to try to keep you from hitting your face on that windshield of a mistake of a deal, because you're so excited, especially in the Gator community, like new Gators, like you were saying. There's so many deals they want to do. They want to go. And when you start pointing out risks, they kind of like, oh, I'm not worried about that. I'm like, well, you need to be, and you explain it to them. And, some still do the deal. Those are the ones, like, if the risk is too high, that we'll say, hey, we can't TC your deal because I'd rather not TC your deal and have it go bad than for you to tell people I just didn't do your deal. And so it's been an eye opener to some, and then I have some come back going, hey, you told me not to fund this deal, but I did. And now they're not answering my calls and they're not paying them bills. And so what do? We help those people figure out how to take over the property or get their money back. But yeah, we try to be that, like I said, that airbag to keep you from getting hurt.
I love it. So just to be clear though, you guys aren't underwriting the deals, right? You're not underwriters. You're not signing contracts. You're not dealing with contracts either. I think that's a big misconception in our community. They think you're going to handle the contracts and everything for them, right?
Yeah,
But-
well, I think a lot of things are changing. And I think that the community is starting to see that, right? And now and I love it, right? Because not only are the TCs operating differently, but so are the investors. And so it goes hand in hand. And one of the reasons why we don't fill out contracts is because we're not attorneys. Some of us are agents. I'm a real estate agent, but I'm not representing you in this deal. So, I kind of have to remain like this neutral party, and we don't want to take on any liability if something goes south and then, this contract gets pulled up in court. They're going to want to know who wrote that, right? And if you wrote it, you are now in this mess. So as a transaction coordinator, it's best to just say, hey, we'll look at it, we'll make sure everything looks good, we'll give you some guidance to say, okay, wait a minute, this doesn't look right, or I would reword that. Hey, I noticed that you mentioned X, Y, and Z, but that didn't make it in the contract. It should actually be in there to make sure that everyone is on the same page. So that's our role as a transaction coordinator. And that's to the extent of it.
I love it. Thank you for that. I wanted to clear that up because I know Molly's been really pushing and saying we do not sign contracts, or we don't do the contract part of it, right? Because that would mean you're liable for it. So it makes total sense to me. But I think a lot of us, I myself included, didn't realize that wasn't part of it, but it makes a lot of sense now, and so I'm glad we're talking about it. Let's see.
So, and do you mind if I jump in, Lance, for just a second?
Yeah, please do.
Because I'm interested in this area, man. So I've been,
yes, thank you.
Probably like some of you guys have been investing for a while now. And I'm also an agent here in Texas, and I've been doing things on both sides. I know escrow officers, I know titling agents, I know real estate attorneys. And I'm always interested on this portion of it, right? Because, and I guess that's always why whenever I do my deals, I make sure that I've got the right escrow agent and titling officer so that they know what the hell they're doing. And I always go with titling and escrow that have on-premise attorneys, right? So that they can look at the deals directly. But I'm wondering if you can go into that just a little bit more. Obviously, you guys do not fill out the contract. However, you guys are looking at the contracts to make sure, right, that they're correct. And I'm in no way trying to shoot holes in what you guys do. I'm just always interested in this portion of it because it's kind of like wholesaling to me, right? Like you've got a third party in the deal and it somewhat muddies the waters. I find that wholesalers, respectively, most of the time, they're there to assign, but they don't really understand the contracts that are actually being run back and forth. So let's just say here in the state of Texas, right, I use, the TREC 1 to 4 family contract. I use the sub 2 addendums. I ham that over to my titling attorney. I explain it all to the deal, but then we start to, run the deal through titling and through the attorney. Explain that a little bit more, right, on the escrow side of the house, exactly what you guys are doing, right? Because generally speaking, right, if you're trying to transfer title and get it lodged with the county recorder and all of that, right, like want to make sure all those processes happen correctly too. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, are you guys concentrating in on the sub 2 addendums? Are you guys concentrating in on, like what exactly in the deal is it that you guys are concentrating on?
Yeah,
because there's so many moving pieces, right? Like to the finalization of the deal.
Yeah, one of the common things that I actually see is numbers being put in the wrong place, right? And title will take it because if you put that number on there, you're saying that that's the sales price. Am I really going to question it? Right? So, but as a transaction coordinator, we already should have had a consultation. We already had a conversation. So you're going, when I'm looking at this contract, what you're telling me and what's on that contract needs to make sense. Because if it doesn't make sense and I can't explain it, then we need to go back and get this, worded correctly, or the numbers need to be put correctly. You don't know how many times I see people, putting in a contract. It's a sub 2, yet they're writing it up like it's a cash contract, and it's not. So, and then you're reading the contract, they're like, okay, where else does it say that this is a sub 2? Yes, the sub 2 addendums are there, but it can easily be missed, right? Because when title is looking at it, they see it, okay, cash, here's the amount. Okay, that's how we're going to run it. That's how the HUD is going to reflect. So that's what we're looking at. Jay, is there something else you would like to add?
Well, I mean, we're also collecting all the documents, right? Because as you're moving and going, like you said, there's a lot of moving parts. We're making sure, again, seller acknowledgments up to addendums done. You're getting the mortgage statement. You're getting the insurance statement. We're getting your logins and testing them to make sure you can actually get in to pay the mortgage. We offer services to set up servicing and post closing as well. We're also making sure all of the forms are filled out before signature. And then one of the biggest things that we do is review the HUD based on the deal you made and make sure that the HUD's correct. Because let's face it, 9 out of 10 times the first HUD's not correct. We've saved probably $80,000 on our clients in the past 2 months from incorrect HUDs, just because the title company put it in the wrong spot. We're also making sure you're getting the right documents. I had one just now where they were doing a seller carryback and they wrote the entire note and deed of trust for the entire full amount to the seller, which made no sense. They wrote it for the entire price of the house. And I was like, no, you can't do that. The only note they get is for the $40,000 on the carryback. That's all they get. And having to work with that title attorney. So like, Damon, I'm like you, I'll find a title attorney or a title company that in a state that understands creative so that you don't have to have those conversations all the time. But it's that time that you get to not have to answer the phone or connect to the seller and say, hey, seller, I need you to send this document to title. They've emailed you twice. That's our biggest thing for the investors, just giving you that time back. You're not wasting on the phone, checking email and all that. You're pretty much just getting those updates and not having to actually do anything until we say, hey, it's time to sign. Hey, it's time to get your keys. It's time to do this. That's the biggest benefit that we've been able to provide clients.
Now, just to add, just because it's a creative title company or attorney doesn't mean that it's still going to end up correct, right? I was working on a deal. It's a sub 2, right? And now this sub 2 student is going to sell the property. He's like, I just want out. I'm not wrapping it. I'm just removing myself. So on the HUD, they have him as the lender. And I'm like, wait a minute, he's not the lender. They're like, yes, but the thing is, we have to do it like we have to do a promissory note and a deed of trust, because a lot of title companies are doing that now for the seller, right? But the previous seller, their name is still on the mortgage. He is going to be out. There's no reason why he should get a promissory note and a deed of trust. So it's just little things like that. Like, even though they're a title company that understands creative, or an attorney that understands creative, there might still be instances where what you as the investor are trying to get at as far as your end goal might not happen without someone being on your side and saying, wait a minute, I understand what he's trying to do here. That's not correct. He or she is not correct, right? So that's why it's really important to have that extra person to kind of like bring it all together.
Yeah, I think that's why I brought that up, right? Because in my mind, if we like rewind it back, right, to when I first started asking the question, I think that people are not always cognizant of how many moving pieces there are in the transaction, right? And so, just getting the contract over and getting the deal signed, I mean, that's a very tip of the iceberg. There's a lot underneath. And I think like coordinating all of those pieces, right, as you move through the titling and escrow process is, it's a lot, right? So it's always nice to have somebody there who can help that transaction where you're not constantly on the phone with title, right?
Right. And with title companies nowadays, remember we were saying that things are always changing. And you can use a title company today and they can handle your creative transaction, no problem. And now next month you have another deal, maybe very similar in the same state, everything should be straightforward. And now you find out they're like, hey, sorry, we don't handle these types of deals anymore. It happens all the time, because anything, maybe they dealt with a very complicated transaction and they got turned off. They're like, nope, too risky. We're not doing these anymore. Or something happened on the back end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyways, that was my main question. Cause I'm always, I know like here in the state of Texas, probably like Jay, I'm confident. I understand the state of Texas. I've got people that I work with, but And then the second that you go outside the state of Texas, all of the parameters of the state change, right? And so everything is totally different. I mean, geez, everything is totally different from one county to another in Texas, much less one state to another, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, hey, Lance, man, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Thanks, Damon.
Yeah.
Juan, did you have anything, bro? Juan's gone. How about Justin? Justin, do you want to hop up and did you have anything for our guests? I know
Yeah.
Justin's an underwriter, so he likes the technical stuff.
I dive into the details. No, I mean,
Yes.
I definitely see the advantages here, especially for people who are new and getting into real estate and not really, seeing all the moving parts and pitfalls and so on. I think that it's really important to to educate yourself, and it sounds like you guys do a fair bit of that with your deals with these people that you're helping as well. So I commend you on that. I know that can be challenging. But what so you mentioned a few states. What states do you guys feel most comfortable working in, and where where can people look for you to be able to to work with you?
I mean, we work in all 50 states and Puerto Rico because Jennifer's done a couple deals for herself and others in Puerto Rico. There's states we don't like, but there's not a state we won't work in.
Yeah, gotcha.
We don't like New York. We don't like California, right? Nobody likes that, investor or not, from a real estate perspective. But we do a lot of deals in Georgia, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and then up north in like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Indiana. That's where a lot of my clients are. And then, I've done them in Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada. So really any state, just,
Gotcha.
some harder than others.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
even like with New York, like people say, oh, do you guys CC New York? Yes, we can CC. The only thing is make sure that both attorneys are on the same page, right? Because we can find a creative attorney. However, if the seller's attorney that they're comfortable with does not approve of this, the deal is going to go south. So I always let people know up front, in these attorney states, they both have to be on the same page.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite deal type to work on?
I don't know if I have one. I think
I like PML.
Yeah.
Private money or private money partners, especially when it's intricate, like having to do, UCC 1 as security over collateral, things like that is fun for me. I like those. I like challenging ones that aren't the same.
Right. Gotcha.
Obviously do them all, but when you bring me one that I'm like, how can we do this creatively? That's really fun for me.
Yeah. And what's the most common pitfall that you see people encountering?
They're too eager to do the deal.
Yeah.
Like that's why I brought it up earlier. It's one of those, we get all the way through and they're like, oh, we reran the numbers. And I'm like, but I told you that before you signed the contract and started it, that the numbers didn't make sense. Because again, I give an opinion base. I'm an investor too, right? So I not only do TC work, but I have a buy and hold company and a lending company. So I do all of it. And so I look at it and say, for my opinion, not a real estate agent or your lawyer, but I wouldn't invest in this. So here's why. And they keep pushing, and then they come back and realize, oh, we made a mistake. So it's really, that's just that overzealousness, especially, and I'm not picking on, but we see more of that out of the Gator area community because it's all about transaction, right? It's all about hurry up and get transactions. How many transactions can I get? I don't see as much of that out of the sub 2 side because those are longer deals, right? They take longer to do, and you're usually vetting those a little bit more than somebody asking you for 10 grand and just lending it to them. That's what I see. Jen might have something else different.
Yeah, it's pretty similar, but when people are trying to rush, with lending deals, I see that quite a bit. Oh, I have a borrower, he wants the funds like today. It's like, okay, well, has the title search been started? Like, what property are we gonna put a lien on? I don't know. Nothing has been started. It's like, okay, well, I get it. They needed the money like yesterday, but don't you want to be protected too? And it's like, when they feel like they're under pressure, they feel like, okay, well, I just want to get this deal done. And that's where things go wrong. Don't rush, take your time and make sure you have all the documents that you need. Make sure that you're protected. Otherwise, you're going to suffer in the long run.
Yes, I
Yes.
agree. I couldn't agree more. 100%. Anyone in here jump into a deal because they were too eager? Huh? Put a 1 in the chat if you've gotten yourself into a bad situation because you didn't.
Or is the
You-
question, how many deals have you done?
How many
Because you're
bad? Yeah, that you're overzealous.
Put a number in the chat. How many deals have you done? I have an interesting question, man, which kind of like flows to you a little bit, Lance. We know you're kind of in the midst of starting, I think, a TC business, and
Yeah.
I always like to, hear people who have been doing it or created this, like Jay and Jennifer. If you could take yourselves now, right, with everything that you've learned, and you could go talk to the new transaction coordinator or somebody who's wanting to start this, and you could say, hey, these are all the things that I've learned. Here's how you could do it better and faster. Like, what would you tell somebody, right, who's trying to go down this road, or maybe start some form of transaction coordinating?
I think, what was that question? I think you said that was for Lance, right?
Well, I said that's kind of pointed towards Lance, because I think him and his wife are, trying to do some semblance of that. I don't want to speak for him, but more for you and Jay, right? Like, you've got this breadth of knowledge now. You guys have been doing this for a while. You've obviously done tons of deals. If you could, look at your business now and go and talk to the new person in the community who's maybe thinking about transaction coordinating, where would you start? How would you start? How would you wrap your head around it? What would you do?
Yeah, I think one of the things that is a misconception, and I see this a lot with new TCs, is that they want to get into being a transaction coordinator because they feel that learning creative is too complicated. I don't want to have to, explain to people how these deals work. So they figure, okay, it's all administrative and that's it. And then they get into it and then they figure, oh, snap, I have to do consultations. And now they're asking me all these questions that I have no idea anything, right? And quite frankly, in the beginning, I remember my first consultation like it was yesterday. My first consultation was with a group of investors. I think there was like 3 people on there. And they were asking me questions left and right. And I'm like, it was very overwhelming, right? Because even though I understood the process, because I was TCing my husband's deals, I didn't fully understand creative. I was still learning. And that was very challenging. So I tell people all the time, new TCs or people that are wanting to be TCs will reach out to me and say, what do I need to do? I'm like, to be honest, don't focus on learning how to be a TC. Don't focus on that part first. Focus on learning creative. What makes each deal, what makes a sub two, a hybrid? How do they differ? What is needed? Like, all of those things are important. And it also helps when you're doing like a seller walkthrough, right? You're explaining to a very nervous seller how the process works, what can they expect, and how are they protected in the deal. So that's my feedback. Jay, I don't know, do you have something different?
Yeah, I mean, we tell a lot of them, because we talk to new TCs all the time. Like, work on a team first before you jump out and try to do it on your own. I think you don't know how overwhelming it's going to be. You think it's easy until you have 10 deals and you want to go on vacation. Your investors don't care that you're on vacation. They need you to take care of it. And so you don't actually get to enjoy that vacation. So being on a team, you can pass those files off and have somebody on your team work them. So you have backup, you have coverage. And then we talk a lot about transparency. When you're starting out, it's very easy to say, I'm certified. I should say that I can do all these deals or I have this knowledge. You don't. So don't go and say, oh, I've done so many deals, I can help it. And then you have basic questions. So I'm always transparent. Like I do deals all the time that I have never done. Like I said, that's what's fun, right? That's the creative piece of being a TC. But I tell them, look, I've never done this. I can see how it can work. I understand the flow. Let me get a minute to figure this out and work through it. I'm doing that right now on for a client on how he's going to try to fund a healthcare company and collect money off of it. I got to figure it out. I know how to do it, but I've got to figure out to make sure it's the best way for him. And so that transparency of working with your clients and just telling them the truth and you know, not trying to do too many things as once. Cause I see a lot that hop out there by themselves and they're like, I'm gonna do TC on PML, I'm gonna do Gator, I'm gonna do sub 2, I'm gonna do wraps, I'm gonna do post closing, I'm gonna do servicing. You're one person. There's no way you have any kind of deal flow if you're trying to do all those things by yourself at one time. I mean, post closing alone takes 30 days on one deal. So how are you, you know, if you get 3 of those, you're busy every day working on that. So yeah, that's what we try to work through and just tell them like focus on a few things at a time and then add from there. Build your business.
Ooh, great advice.
Right.
I love that, man, because I mean, I don't know how you feel, Lance, but I know transparency, right, in terms of business overall is really important. I mean, I can't tell people how many times, like when I started my construction company before I sold it, man, there was many times where, hey, do you know how to do this? Yes, I absolutely know how to do that, but I had no clue of how to do that. And then I got myself way over my head in water. And then I was scrambling, trying to figure out how to do that thing and how to get that thing done. So I think it's important, right, to be transparent, know the things that you're good at, you know, focus on those. And then, you know, as you go, I guess kind of what you're saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you add additional things to your tool belt, right, as you go.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer too in business is surround yourself with people who know better than you, right? So it's important, right? The team aspect. And then I guess once you learn, maybe you can branch off on your own. But yeah, it's this is one of those things in my mind where it can be difficult to learn on the job, right? Like if you come in and you make a big, massive mistake on somebody's deal, you're not going to make a good name for yourself.
Especially when you're starting out. Like for us, we've got, like I said, we have 14 counting us, and so we have huddles every day. And if you've got a problem, we've got a chat, we've got a phone call, we've got a team to bounce it off of and say, have you ever seen this, and how do we deal with this? And we do it all day long. You know, we talk and communicate, and it's good because it's hard to turn down deals too. Like when this is your sole job, you know, people don't want to turn down deals, but you got to sometimes. You just got to be able to do that. And I think that's another good thing about business is like have that integrity piece to where you're not just going out there to take somebody's money. You actually understand the ramifications of what could happen if you fail. Granted, we're not the investor. It's on the investor, right, to make sure their money's protected, but we play a part in that. And that'll ruin your reputation more than anything. Because I tell people all the time on my things, you are what they say behind your back. That's who you are, regardless if it's true. That's who you are in the public eye. And so make sure you're always showing that integrity in your business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's huge, man. And I think something else that interests me as I've talked to you guys or heard you talk with Lance, and I'll turn it back over to you, Lance. I'm not trying to take it all away, but
No, you're good, man.
I think
my
it's
wife does all
interesting.
this for me, so I don't get into the weeds really much here.
It's interesting, like I guess as you start, and let's say I don't know, you're not working together, right? Like this is just Jay and Jennifer starting out as a TC, right? But now you've come together as a TC. Now you're bringing people on, right, as TCs. You have to have a lot of systems and I'm assuming processes in place to be able to do all that. I'd love to understand that a little bit, right? Because always as a business, as an entrepreneur, I'm trying to bolt things onto my business to help it to grow, but to grow efficiently, right? And I find that to always be a task. I mean, I always say it's like so hard to find good help, and then when you do, if you don't have all the things in place, the help goes away. So like maybe you guys can talk about a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we definitely have processes in place. And the thing about what we do with TCing is not any two deals the same. And so we have an outline of a process and you slide in there. There's some things that are going to go in and out, right? And that's where that conversation of, hey, I got to this point in the process, but this doesn't make sense. What do we need to do? That's that community piece of being able to help each other. We have a lot of our stuff is templates, so we're able to speed up processes by templating out email conversations and things like that. Reaching out to title companies. We also, Jennifer and I also push a lot to partner with title companies. So we get on the phone and talk to title companies all day long to make sure they understand what we're doing and meet with them and go over our paperwork and say, these are the types of deals we're going to bring you so that we can replicate that 100 times. And make it and try to make that, a standard operating procedure, even though, again, deals are different. Every deal is different. I can take the same PML deal on paper, but the investor is going to be different. The borrower is going to be different. The HML that they have is going to be different, but it's still, they're borrowing 20 grand. And everybody thinks you can do the same 20 grand borrow every time the same way, and you can't. And so that's one of the things that's hard. It's good to make those processes to have people come on, and our processes are really around training, teaching, and the community aspect for this. It's a little harder to do things like you would like on a wholesale side where you would do, this is the flow chart. That's how you do every wholesale deal. These are the KPIs you track to make sure you're doing it right. All that stuff is different in this type of business.
Mm. So do you have like any automated software? I mean, we know nowadays, right? Chat GPT is starting to run the world, right? But do you have like any of those automations to make your life easier? I know you had mentioned emails, but maybe like a CRM that you're running stuff through. I just recently went through like a big CRM change to go high level, and I'm always interested to see like, how are you working to try to automate your business and then run that through 14 people to make sure you can replicate the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, so we use a CRM. We do use a CRM for things like setting appointments. So instead of having Calendly, we run it through our CRM. We have a submit file where you can submit the files to us. We find a lot of investors don't like filling that out. So we also have the ability, you can just email it to us. We automate all of our billing and all of that. The big side is we don't fill out contracts or anything like that. So there's no like automated template we can do for that. We do have certain things that we are allowed to work on. So like the sub-2 closing packet, all that's automated, and things like that. But the big one for us is the automation of email, because that's what 90% of our communication standards are, right? And so we automate that. We put a lot of time into automating that and making sure that, and one of our TCs is actually on the call so that they don't have to think about what to write. They just copy paste, and it's got plug-in names and numbers, and they just do all that, and it's good to go. They're ready to roll, and it's written the way we need it written. And, they come to us with changes, and we review it, and we say, yeah, let's change the template. Oh, great. That's a good idea. Or no, we can't, because here's why. Yeah, the automation we got to build as best as I think we can for today, but it can always change. Again, landscape changes. So we're always looking at the new technology. ChatGPT, so I use ChatGPT in my W-2, and it's amazing. I just can't, it doesn't match what I'm doing today in the TC side. I use it on my buy and hold side though.
Yeah, man, like that's like for me, I'm on the tech side, much like you. I'm a software engineer, and now, I like I'm a lead for a bunch of software engineers, but I'm always trying to figure out the tech that will at least help me in my business, right? And templatize as much as that stuff as you can, but that, at the end of the day, right? Like there's only so much stuff you can templatize. There's still a human touch to it. So I guess, and that interests me, right? Because you had mentioned you're a CIO, right? You're a chief information officer.
Security officer.
Security officer, yeah. Well, I mean, it's similar, right? So you're like on the security side of it. So like, where do you feel like that stuff helps you, right? Because I know, like, as a leader, having been in the military, I like to think that I'm a good babysitter at this point. It's a lot of what I do, babysitting software engineers that are throwing temper tantrums, right? So, like, how much of that do you think, really works when you're doing this? Because what I find, and maybe Jennifer can speak to that too, is that, man, in these transactions, sometimes tempers get heated. And it's like you do everything that you can to cool these folks down. Like I had one where it was just taking a long time. It was taking the tiling company, a long time to get it done. We thought that they had it done, but then there was an extra week, and now the wholesaler wants to back out, and my TC is calling, calm down. We're gonna get this to the finish line, right? So I'm wondering, like, how much of that stuff works for you guys? How much of that stuff do you do where you're really working between both parties to kind of keep the even keel to get it to the finish line?
Yeah, it definitely happens. I mean, this is what I tell people when things start to get antsy. One of the biggest things to avoid from that happening in the future is setting realistic expectations. A lot of times people say, oh, it's a creative deal, we can get this closed in a week. Yet title is still taking a while for it to come back. And things happen. Yes, can deals close? I mean, we've closed deals in as little as 2 weeks. That is not the norm. That does not always happen. It does not always happen. When it does, great. Everyone is super excited. But I always tell people 30 days, we can try to close sooner, but keep in mind, there are unexpected things that come up. And, it's just really talking it through with people and explaining where we are in those stages, right? And figuring out what is taking title so long, right? It could be, and sometimes, it's easy to blame the TC, right? Because they're the direct person to the transaction. Or it's also easy to blame the title company. But people tend to forget that these searches also have to do with the county, right? And that's where things happen. So unfortunately, there are unexpected things that come up, and it's just really talking through it and really level setting everything. But it starts from the beginning. Just setting those expectations early is going to make it better in the long run.
Yeah, like making people realize, hey guys, the county recorder doesn't work on your time. They work on their time.
Yeah, or you're trying to close a deal on a week when it's a holiday.
Oh
December
my
is
goodness.
the
Yeah.
worst. The
How about
last 2
banks?
weeks. Yeah, the last 2 weeks of December are terrible because
Yeah.
yes, we have you have Christmas Eve, you have Christmas Day, you have New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So all of those things, title is not just going to take one day off. You have that, like, they will take a few days off and they will have like a skeleton crew, and you will barely hear from people the last like 2 to 3 weeks going into January. You will barely hear from title and the attorneys. It's terrible.
Well, the county recorder is a government. They're a local government employee, and they're gonna take like all their like 1 week, 2 weeks off, and everybody in the office is off.
Paid.
You can't get a hold of anybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can only imagine what you guys' job is like when you like when everybody's rushing to get that final transaction for the year done. Excuse
yeah.
me. It's
Yeah. Hey guys,
I
we're
can
gonna
only
open it up for Q&A here in a minute, or we should now, but I just wanted to add something that thanks for asking those questions, Damon. That was amazing. I actually reached out to Jen when we were in the early phases of talking about this, setting up the TC business, because our partners are actually gonna do most of the work. I'm just gonna drive traffic. So first person I thought of was to call Jen, and she hopped on a call with me, and we kind of hashed out some things. I asked her some questions, but I think I learned more tonight on this with you and Jay, than than I've known basically since I've been investing. So thank you guys so much for all that valuable information that you provided tonight.
Hey, I do have one last question for them, only because I'm interested, and I'm just wondering if they have an answer, and then I'll let it go. On the insurance, guys, what do you do when you run into these sub two deals on the insurance, right? Like it's always a massive pain, I think. So like, how do you guys tell these investors to handle the insurance portion?
Ooh, let me go, Jen, because I've been answering this question all week.
Go ahead. We hear it all
He's
the
like,
time, David.
I'm a master. I've got this down.
There's two trains that you can do here, right? Number one, when you take over a deal sub two, the day the deed transfers is the day that current insurance policy is voided. It does not work. Now, does that mean they won't pay out? Maybe, maybe not, but that's a big risk, right? So you need to get your own insurance policy. You need to do it with an insurance company that understands how to set it up, or will at least listen to your TC to set it up correctly. Now, with the big companies, I recommend, so like if you've got a Mr. Cooper or an M&T or any of those big companies, I recommend just replacing the insurance with the new one, and getting the escrow money back out of what you've already paid out. That's prorated, right? If you're talking like Podunk Community, Credit Union, I recommend you just buy a second policy and you leave the first policy alone and just continue to pay it in escrow and buy the other one outside of escrow. So whenever we see a contract and we see, that's the good thing about us pulling the mortgage statements and the insurance statements, we can see what they're paying and we can actually see who the mortgage holder is. And we can say, hey, when it comes time to do insurance, we recommend you buy an insurance policy outside and just keep that insurance policy, because that has a higher risk of invoking the due on sale clause. Again, recommendation, they can tell us, no, we want to replace it. That's fine. But yeah, it's one of those things where there's two tracks there. But one thing is you got to have an insurance policy in your name, regardless, or your wrap buyer's name, however you're doing it. So if people are taking it over and they're strictly going to do like a fix and flip, well, then you need to have a vacant policy. So that's why we always ask, what's your exit strategy? Are you going to spend 6 months rehabbing it? Well, you don't need a homeowner's policy. You need a vacant building policy, so that if it burns down, you're covered. Because if it burns down and nobody lives there, they can reject paying you as well. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and this is where we were talking about changes, right? Because I would say like 6 to 8 months ago, the community was taught, just add yourself onto the current insurance policy. But as time went on, they started to realize that people were running into issues when it came to a claim. So now they say, just get your own policy and just make sure that you add the seller on there. That's extremely important.
So can I just do that, because I'm dealing with that now. So you guys are saying add yourself as the primary and then add your seller as the secondary, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha. Cool. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
On your insurance policy, you can't take theirs and swap it. It has to be a new policy.
Right. Gotcha. Thanks, man. I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, that was that. Thanks for clearing that up, because I've heard that a lot in the community. You just take over their policy, and that's not accurate. That's amazing. Thank you for clearing that up. We've got a question. Are you guys okay going just a little over and taking a few questions, or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Let's do it.
All right, Jenny, hop on up here. What's your question?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Okay, I have a general question. Is it customary that there's some type of fee for underwriting a deal? Is that included in a TC's fee? If the TC is the underwriter, or how does this
No.
work?
Now, transaction coordinators don't typically underwrite the deal. The transaction coordinating fee, I will at least speak for us, because I can't speak on behalf of other TCs and what they're doing in their business, right? Everyone's business model is going to be different. But for us, underwriting is going to be its own thing, right? We do have someone on our team that can underwrite a deal, right? But that's its own thing because think about it, it's time consuming, right? You got to gather all the information, you got to run the numbers, you got to make sure that the comps are accurate, all of that stuff, and then talk about it and see, would this actually be a deal or not, right? And then doing the TC part of it, it's a whole another ball game, and it's also time consuming on its own. So it's two different things completely.
Yeah, I understand that. I know that there's a fee for the TC part of it. But the underwriting part of it, I'm
Yeah.
not sure about that, how that works really. Because I'm hearing different things. I'm new to this. I'm licensed, but I'm new to this part of it. And I'm hearing different things and I'm thinking, what is the right thing or what is not? I could underwrite myself, but I'm new to it, so I'm probably gonna make some mistakes maybe along the way. So I need guidance, that's for sure, So I know all you guys are probably experienced already. Lance, I
Yes.
sent you a message, yeah.
Yeah, I
So-
was gonna say, you reach out to any of the people who host this podcast. As you know, I've done a ton of Gator deals and a lot of PML stuff, so we can walk you through a lot of the process of from start to finish. So if you need any help with that, also if you need TC services, Top Tier TC. I had brain fart when I first got on. Top Tier TC is their business, and they're amazing. I've referred a lot of people to Jay and Jen over the course of this last year. So they're amazing. I know them and I know they do good work. You only hear good things about them and their business. So I just wanted to make sure everybody.
Hey, Lance, the name is Finish Line TC Service.
Oh my God. What did I say? Top tier?
Top tier, that's the program.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. Two brain
Okay.
farts in one night. It happens a lot. So
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think we're friends on Facebook too. I think I'd send you.
Yeah, well, Jenny, let me add, like, so all the things that Lance said, but I will add additionally, like, this is part of the community, right? If you know that maybe underwriting is not your strong suit or you don't feel efficient at it, you need to reach out to folks, right, that do. So obviously any of the guys in here, but like, there's also an underwriting community like Bo and
Yes.
you are free to go and sit in, I think, to some of those meetings as well. So, I would add to you, just if that's the place where you maybe feel like you're not as strong,
Right.
reach out to some folks who are, right?
Yeah.
And then
I-
like, this is just me speaking on what I would do, but then I'd have like the TC to handle the transaction. So first go out, find the transaction, then find somebody to help you to underwrite that transaction. Then you find somebody that'll get you to the finish line on the transaction, right? That's kind of they handle the escrow portion. Since you're a realtor, right? You understand that.
I'm familiar with that. Yes, yes. I thought it's only the sub two people get to sit in on those underwriting podcast, maybe.
Yeah.
Zoom.
Oh, so you're not in the substitute, you're in the Gator community.
I'm in the Gator community, yeah.
Yeah, so you'll find plenty of people like Lance. He's a Gator / sub 2.
Yes.
And that's what I would probably look for is some of those folks in the community. They're like Gator / sub 2. Hey, I've got a deal. Would you mind helping me on that? And man,
Yes.
there's a ton of those people. Lance will
There's
help you.
also
I can
there are
do
people
anything.
in the Gator community just doing underwriting as well. They have a business that they've basically created just to underwrite. Lottie is one of them. If you could look up Lottie, I can't think of his last name right now, but he's basically been helping people underwrite deals, and that's basically all he does. He does deals as well, but that's basically his strength, and he's very detailed from what I understand. So, okay.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
Jesse,
Thank you,
Jesse
guys.
you so
just
much.
put it in the chat for you. There you go.
Okay, anyone else? Did anyone else have any questions? There was someone here. I don't think they want to hop on. That's fine. We can ask the question. Jay wanted to ask this question came up earlier. Let's see. Okay, this Ruby says we're entering as a PMP on a current creative deal. Operating partner is bringing in a reputable TC. How do we ensure our best interests are covered as well without hiring another TC?
Yeah, so the best way to do it, honestly, is to bring in your own TC. If If
Mhm.
if it doesn't pass the smell test from that current one, bring in your own, because no one's going to have your best interest in general, at heart until you do that. Our company, I can speak for our company, is way different. We tell you on the actual call, our job, no matter who hires us, is protection of asset, whether that's the seller on the house or that's the lender on you as the borrower. That's who we protect, regardless who's paying us. But some don't. So I've worked with some, and it's just the nature of the beast. I worked with some people that were TCs for that one side, and it was very one-sided. So if you're looking at it and you feel it's one-sided, then you need to bring in your own set of eyes. And look at, you could talk, are we helping with paperwork, or are you just wanting us to consult? That's a different cost, right? It's cheaper if we just consult and tell you what we see wrong, than if we're actually having to track the entire transaction. But yeah, definitely, if you feel like something's wrong, it probably is. And if it is, it's worth, especially when you're investing money, it's worth, a couple $100 just to make sure you have that assurance, right? I mean, that's why we all carry car insurance, and some of us have never been in a wreck in 20 years, but we've spent thousands on car insurance. It's just to be there. So
Mm.
I would definitely say make sure you feel protected before you do anything.
Yeah.
Good.
Jay's basically saying if you've got that weird feeling, it probably is, it's a real feeling, right? You need to,
Uh-huh.
you need to reach out. Yeah. Yeah. Save yourself thousands by spending a couple of hundred. It's a no brainer.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Let's see. Yeah, you bet. So was there anything else, guys? I mean, is there anything you guys would like to add to this? Do you have any what's the best way to contact you and get a hold of you guys if they want to, use your company? Do you want to drop something in the chat, Jay or Jen?
Yeah, I can drop
Yeah,
Tell
like
us.
all your socials where they can reach you, email or web address or any of that stuff.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
I can draw my blink card. It's got our website, it's got my Instagram, our company's Instagram, Facebook, my email, and then I can give you Jennifer's email too while we're at it. Oh, there she goes. She got it.
Nice.
Best way to get a hold of us, even though our phone numbers are out there, shoot us a text. A lot of times we're on calls. So just shoot us a text, say, hey, do you have a few minutes? Can we talk? And we will definitely schedule some time.
Wait, so you guys would rather them schedule with you, right? And not just call you because you guys are busy during the day, right? Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys pick up on that, right? Don't just call them out of the blue, guys. Yeah. Make sure that you text, make sure that you email, you try to schedule with them.
Mhm.
They're busy. Yeah, but I don't know. Anything else you got, Lance? Anything else you can think of? Because you're starting up a TC business, man.
I know. Well, I get the good thing is I have a good relationship with both of these people, and so I will I'll call you on my special line.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, there'll be
Like
things
on
coming
the
up.
red
The good news
phone.
is I'm not really running it, so I'm just trying to set us up for success. So
There you go. I love that, man.
Yeah, man.
Well, I think it's cool, man. I always look back like Lance first started, man. Now he's got doing deals, PMLs, Gator, and now he's starting a TC business. It's like, what are you going to do next, man?
Let's
What else
go.
is left? I don't know.
Sober living, co-living.
There you go.
It's always
Yeah,
so
bro.
cool to see people grow, like, over time. It's like now I've been in sub 2 for a year, and I'm like, man, I'm seeing like all these people like just flourish over time, and just myself too. I look back and I'm like,
Yeah.
this was me before, this is me today. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that I love the most about the community is that, I mean, it makes me really happy when I see people succeed. And man, if you go out and do $1 million deal on apartments, man, good for you. That's awesome. I'm, so happy to see that. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, Abraham said like everything that he does is to create freedom, right? And I love it when people get to create whatever freedom looks like to them. That's awesome. But guys,
Yes.
I want to tell you how much I appreciate you for coming on. I'm sure Lance does too. I'm always appreciative the most of people that give their time because time is the most valuable thing that we have. And I love that when people are willing to come in and impart knowledge on the rest of us. So, man, we really thank you guys for that. I appreciate you. And at that, guys, we've come to the close of the hour to respect
Yeah.
Jay and Jen's time. And yeah, we appreciate everybody for coming. Please, guys, go onto YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all of those. We will soon be on Spotify doing our thing there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're here to try to bring more and more knowledge to the community and as much value as we possibly can. We appreciate all you guys. Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
guys. Have a
Thank you
good night.
guys so much.
You're
Good
welcome.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you.